What did you see that you definitely weren't supposed to see? When I was a kid I had to pull one of my ferrets out from under my parents' bed and locked in his jaws was a bright red rubber dildo. Mum's vibrator. S. Help. Oh, also some FX tapes of my friend's dad and his girlfriend. Oh, and what makes it worse is they used my friend's trident, a toy that he used frequently in the childish fighting game we used to play, as both a dildo and like a wooden spoon. We both saw this as young children scrolling through the smart TV's files looking for a movie. One time I was up late at night scrolling Facebook at the same time as my drunk and high off Xanax married mother who was an entire time zone away at the time. She was messaging an old fling from high school while her husband was away at work and was sending him close-up pictures of her vagina. How I know this is because she didn't send them via Messenger. She posted them on her actual Facebook page. I had to call her in the middle of the night in her zonked out stupor to get her password to delete pictures of vagina off her own Facebook page. Was working at a hotel during college and saw my lab partner get a room with the professor. My aunt sent a picture of her tits to my mom after she got them done. I happened to be the one using the phone when the message came through and opened it without expecting anything like that. About 5 years old, woke up to the snow finally starting to melt. Notice a girl asleep in the garden. Went and told my dad. He took one look and told me to go play in my room. Turns out girl had been asleep in our front garden for about 2 weeks, buried and frozen under the snow. Okay, follow up on this. I didn't know she was dead until I was about 16 when I mentioned it to my dad. Remember that girl asleep in the garden? Dad, she was dead, you idiot. As far as I know she was like late teens, early 20s. We lived in a pretty rough area. Lots of drugs, etc. He had probably been out partying, sat on our garden wall and passed out. I do not know exact cause of death or toxicology report. Naked men wrestling on my mom's laptop, not gay PRN. It was actual wrestling in a ring. Just with their soft DCKS out, when I was like 9. She later came out as a lesbian. So I'm not sure what that was about. Was fixing an elderly neighbor's laptop that had nudes of his wife on the desktop with the thumbnails at maximum size. It's like he wanted me to see them. I will say though, she had a banging bod for a woman in her 70s. I think it's safe to say he thought the same. I went on a road trip with my grandma when I was 15. My mom let me borrow her suitcase. Pretty sure she forgot that she'd stashed an envelope of very dirty photos of her and my stepfather. About a dozen. In various acts. With various people and objects. My grandma walked in as I discovered them and I was in a panic, fearing she might ask to see the photos I was looking at. Thankfully my aunt distracted her and I was able to hide them away in the pocket where I'd found them. It was quite an awakening. When I was still married, my then wife had left her phone on to run to the bathroom while I was in bed. I looked at it for the time and found it was left open to a secret Gmail account she was using for sending literally hundreds of nudes back and forth between many dudes. For years. Up to that night while she was fully 6 months pregnant. Mostly original stuff too. I think that hurt more. The night I learned my ex-GF was cheating. She just got up from the couch to kill a bug and left her phone face up on the couch with Snapchat open. The chat had a picture of her boobs and some sting replies from the guy. My heart dropped down to my butt. Man. I had a treehouse in my backyard. The neighbors behind us had a pool. I was 12, their daughters were 18 and had their boyfriends over. Reading. Was working on a school project with some kid. Opened a folder where I thought we saved some of the videos for the project. It was nothing but his dad's bestiality PRN. I'll never forget the look on that kid's face. His parents got a divorce like a month later. And he moved away. When I was 13ish. I went into our computer room just in time to finish seeing my dad send an email that said I love you and some other stuff to a woman that wasn't my mom. He tried to cover my eyes and act like he was joking around. I promptly left and went back a while later. I tried getting in his email but he had changed the password. We all knew it because his email was used to log into a lot of stuff by the family. I never told my mom. Few years later, he divorced my mom and she asked me for help getting proof of him cheating from the laptop he had also used. I found graphic Craigslist messages that he had sent and received. Just gonna add a "Sah" here to parents. Don't ducking ask your child to do this. Take it to a goddamn PC shop and save your child the emotional and mental scars. My mom's phone got a notification while it was charging. Curious. I just checked to see what it was. It was a text message from some guy saying I'm going to have your PSSY for breakfast. I've never checked her phone since. In my high school Spanish class, our teacher had taped VHS a telenovela for us to watch. When she put the VHS tape in, there was about 25 seconds of a PRNO that played. A topless woman moaning. Out of a class of around 30 kids. Only about 5 of us looked around at each other and locked eyes with a "Did anyone else just ducking see that?" look. Our teacher must have taped over an old PRNO VHS of hers. I was at a work-related retreat for a week and ended up sharing a room with a guy from a different site. It was my first time meeting him, but we hit it off pretty well from the get-go. The last night I was there, I walked into our room and found him in bed with one of my male co-workers. Without missing a beat, I did a 180 and walked out the door without saying a word. As I was walking away, my co-worker angrily whispered, "I thought you said you didn't have a roommate." For some reason, my roommate thought I was going to leave a night early, but that didn't happen. Close bracket. Ended up spending a couple of hours at the main cabin chatting with some folks so they could have their fun. I don't work there anymore, but I remember every time I would run into said coworker, he would always try to avoid chatting with me. I definitely didn't care if he was sleeping around. But, in retrospect, it was probably more embarrassing for him than it was for me. I was hiking in a forest with some friends, and as we continued on the trail, the mound of rocks on our right side opened up to more forest. Myself and one of my friends were leading the other two by a couple of yards, and we both briefly saw a couple having doggy-style sex several hundred feet into the forest on that right side. My friend and I gave each other that "Did you see that ht2? Look. By the time my other friends caught up, the couple had split and we couldn't see them anymore. It was like 2 PM in broad daylight off of a main road. Which was the weirdest part. When I was a kid, somehow a digital camera appeared in my house. At the time I didn't know where it had come from, but it was there. Once I was lurking around and saw it on the shelf, so I took it and started taking pictures. But my pics were bad, so as I started to view them to erase them, I realized it had more pictures. So I keep watching them, till I saw one of my sister on her knees, sucking DCK. Later I found out that the camera was a gift to her from an older guy she met online. I just stopped thinking about it and never looked back. Just erased that memory from my mind. Until now, I guess. My grandparents were both a bit deaf. I was downstairs prepping dinner and called out to them. No response. I placed their plates on a tray instead and walked upstairs to their room. Their door half open. Saw my fully naked grandma riding my fully naked grandpa like they have no aches and pains. It's weird. Like normally they do everything in slow-mo. Apparently not. A collection of child PRN and bestiality images from the dark web that someone was trying to publish as a book on Amazon. I think the owner thought that if they didn't include any S or keywords in the book metadata, the reviewers wouldn't notice it. Eater. I used to lead work on the book review team. I live with 2 housemates. One of them has a cat which I think is pretty cute. But the other housemate, who is already pretty stoic in general anyway, almost refuses to acknowledge its existence. I popped my head into his room one day, his door was open, and I saw him with his headphones on, playing with the cat with one of those long stick toys with a string on the end. He had a pretty big smile as well. He didn't see me. and I just observed for a couple of seconds cause it was surprising and quite cute and then quietly left. I didn't bring it up because it seemed like a cute, private moment that I don't think he would have liked anyone to have actually witnessed. In high school I found a document on my dad's computer that was basically a diary of his massive crush on another woman. I don't know why I opened it and felt really bad, but he probably shouldn't have kept it on a computer he let me use. It was weird, but I never told anyone and tried not to think about it. My parents are still together and they seem, mostly, happy. Edit. I appreciate all the comments trying to comfort me that this is normal. But the fact remains I definitely was not supposed to see that. As a kid I just felt really sad for both of my parents. I figured they were just staying married because they didn't believe in divorce. But since I've actually been in relationships now, I get that that's just a thing that happens. HR at my last job accidentally sent out a list of everyone's home address, phone number, email, and if they were coming back after the layoff. When I was 18, I was pulling an all-nighter trying to finish an English project when I decided to take a break and grab a can of Coke from the kitchen. While walking there, I passed the living room and saw my father screwing his friend's wife on the couch. I turned right the duck around and decided tap water from the bathroom would suffice. Didn't have air conditioning in my room growing up, so on those hot summer nights that bathroom tap water was a blessing. When I was 14, I was at my cousin's house and we were supposed to be out swimming, but I had snuck back into the house to steal beer and I caught my aunt pegging my uncle. He gave me $100 on the spot to keep quiet. Every time after that when I would see him, he would always slip me anywhere from $20 to $50. Finally when I was about 19 I told him, "It's all good dude. Who do you?" He gave me a hug and we have been thick as thieves since then. Edit. IOIA not. It wasn't a 5-year-long extortion racket. I was a kid and it took me a while to process and understand what I had seen. I just knew that he was freaked out about the whole incident and didn't want anyone to know. So I kept his secret. But I definitely wasn't going to turn down the cash. Later, I could see that things were still awkward between us and I just wanted to clear the air. I imagine him going to a family gathering and saying to himself, "Oh duck, I gotta hit an ATM, that ducking kid is there again." When I was 11 or 12 I walked in on my older brother masturbating. His back was turned, so luckily all I saw was his ass. As I walked in on him I saw his mattress falling back into place, so being the curious child I was, I went to see what was under his mattress on a later day when he wasn't home. I was hoping for PRN. Cause growing up in the 90s in a religious household meant it was super hard to come by. But no. What I found was much worse. I found about 4 dozen little zip-top snack baggies full of cum. Any brain surgeons want to destroy the part of my brain that will remember this? Thanks. My brother opened his Google Chrome in front of me and I saw Hentai Haven in the most visited section under the search bar. Once when I was 14 my dad was working as a handyman after being laid off by his company and taking odd jobs for friends and family members. He would hire me and pay me a day's work with lunch to come be his work partner. Kind of a father-son bonding moment. In hindsight. Anyways, one day we were working at my dad's cousin's house remodeling the master bathroom, and in plain sight, on the bed was a giant DLDO that we both had to pass in order to get to the bathroom. For an entire 8 hours in an empty house me nor my father acknowledged the family DLDO. Family DLDO you say? When I was 9 years old, I walked into my parents' room to talk to my mom who was sleeping. She had cancer at the time, which I didn't know about. So she always wore a headscarf to hide the fact that she was losing her hair from chemotherapy. She woke up frantically and hurried me out of the room, but I cannot forget the moment when I saw her without hair and couldn't understand why. Lol. Edit. Thank you to everyone who reached out. Y'all are very wholesome. 3. To those wondering, my mom passed 2 years later. I have come to terms with it though, and I am 22 years old now. My company's entire payroll on a spreadsheet. Someone left it on the printer. Use the info to get away past due raise. A BDSM PRN video starring a girl who I went to high school with who had recently graduated. I don't know who originally found it or how. But once they did, a lot of people around school ended seeing it. My Spanish teacher with my geography teacher in underwear in a empty classroom. And I saw one of the babies and the baby looked at me. A photo clearly intended for my mom of my dad naked with a few of his friends all holding paper in front of their DCKS that had happy birthday name on them respectively. Bizarro Waxtree. A music and comic shop in Athens. Has lots of storage boxes all over the place. During one visit, I opened one and found a message the staff put inside. Stop being a nosy little turd. I couldn't help but laugh. My neighbor was grounded to her room and my buddy and I were in my backyard and talking to her through her window. Human bones in the bottom of a cenote in the Yucatan of Mexico. Dad told me to stop and not swim in that area anymore. My mom and stepdad's duffel bag of SX toys and German PRN VHS tapes. My manager finger blasting the older cashier in the canned goods pantry. I was trying to piece together which hole the canned goods pantry was for far too long before realizing that it was where it was happening, not to what lol. When I was in high school I used to spend a lot of time exploring abandoned buildings. One time I was in a hospital. The top levels were all vandalized beyond recognition but the basement was untouched. I assume because people were too creeped out or because half the building collapsed, so maybe the risk kept people away. I was dumb though, so I went down. All the paperwork was still on the desks. Prescriptions laying around. Names. Addresses. Phone numbers. I was honestly amazed that all that information was just left. It felt weird because I really wasn't interested in any of it, but I couldn't stop filing through rooms of paperwork untouched for years. It was just a weird compulsion because I knew I wasn't supposed to ever see any of that stuff. Okay, non-NSFW 1. I was waiting in a condo apartment lobby. I asked the concierge for the Wi-Fi password. She was not good with computers and just turned her screen to show a text file that had every important password and key code for the building. I am talking router password, boiler room key combination, package room door code, security camera server password, their concierge email login, everything. Because she didn't want to read out each letter, she let me take a picture of it. This is definitely literal NSFW. I was helping my grandma with dementia walk to the toilet. I got her situated and turned around to give her some privacy to do her business. I hear her giggling. Turn back around and she has her shirt off and was tapping her saggy boobs so they flop back and forth. I'll try to paint the scene. It's a sweltering summer day in a sketchy downtown parking lot. I'm sitting in my car having a smoke. I see a guy push over a portable washroom with another guy inside. The poor dude was covered head to toe in the contents of a hot city toilet. I could smell it from my car. This guy obviously flips out and he starts beating the living hell out of the dude who pushed over the toilet. He gets the guy on the ground, picks up a huge cement brick and repeatedly smashes it on the guy's head. It was a horrific scene. Nobody knew I was there and I had to testify in a court case years later. Close-up photo of, probably, my dad's arsehole while I was scrolling through his iCloud photos looking for a different picture. I think it had something to do with his upcoming rectal exam. Nothing was wrong with it visually, but the realization of what I was looking at was absolutely horrifying. As a dad, I'm gonna go ahead and snap a photo of my anus as a preemptive punishment for going through my phone. My mom's attempted suicide. I was supposed to be at track practice but skipped and caught the bus home. I walked in on my mom face down at her desk with pills and alcohol scattered around her. I was working airport security. I know, I'm sorry. We all hate it too. The X-ray guy sees a jar of cream in a bag. I'm called to the bag check and get the owner of the bag to come with me to do a bag check. I look through it. Find what appears to be a jar of gel and I tell the tiny effeminate man he can't bring gels through. He looks to the other side of the checkpoint, tells his very large stereotypical plumber looking boyfriend this. And he says, "No. Not. It's. Not. You duck it." Yeah, he yelled the last part. I was holding his fleshlight. I had to do a chemical swab on a fleshlight. I was at a friend's house when I was a kid. We were doing crafts on the front porch and I needed tape for something. I ran to the backyard to go ask her mom for some, and when I walked through the pool fence gate, I saw her mom giving her dad a BJ on the lounge chair. I couldn't look her dad in the eyes after that. Most awkward experience I've ever had. Edit. To answer common questions. Yes, I did get the tape. I wasn't leaving without it. We had a serious project on the go. It was imperative I got the tape. Also, text messages on a cell phone my mom gave me when she upgraded to a new one. When I was 11 I saw another kid sh-tee in a urinal, and after he was done he saw me staring at him and literally pissed his pants. My family owns a liquor store. We also live in a busy street. I was around 13. Next to my bed was a window that allowed me to see outside while still in bed. So, one night I was doing exactly that. And I see 3 drunken people, 2 dudes and a girl, walking down the middle of the street, arguing about something. Suddenly, one of the dudes pulls something out of his pocket, which I now know what was a knife of sort, and stabs the other dude in the chest, upper right part of the chest. Then came the blood. There was so much blood. I called the ambulance and they told me to call the cops because they can't respond when it isn't safe. So I did. They came around 30 minutes after I called and the ambulance got there 10 minutes after that. The stabber dude and the girl just ran away when it happened. Like this wasn't the first time they saw themselves in that situation.